Hi everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel Zero Analyst. In this video, we're going to learn trigger in SQL. This is a very important concept in SQL, and you may have gone through multiple videos, you may have got confused, and you may did not see a proper way of understanding this concept. In this video, I'm going to explain this concept with multiple examples, and I have also included all the code in the video descriptions which you can download and practice along with me so that you would master this concept. Now this is a very important concept, and before giving any interview, make sure that you know what is trigger and how it is useful in the real world. Let's first learn what is a trigger in SQL. A trigger in SQL, it is a database object that is going to execute some predefined task after certain events. It could be delete events, it could be update events, it could be insert events. If I give an example, let's say you have an employee table, you have few employees in the table. If anyone delete any employee from the employee table, what do you want? You want to record that employee in a specific logs or in another table. So by mistakenly, if anyone delete it, you can recover it, or you can basically just for the audit purpose, you can check which are the employees that is being deleted. So this type of task you can perform using triggers. So here I have an example. Let's understand trigger with the example. Let's say we have a database. Okay, this is the database, and in the database we have a different tables. So one table we have a salary table, one table we have an employee table. Okay. Now in the employee table, you can see we have a few records, and there is something called logs table. So if anyone delete any employee, that is going to maintain in this log table. So we want a function that is going to automatically add that employee after it is being deleted in the log table, so that if in case by mistakenly if we delete anything from the employee table, we can get it back from this log table, or just for the monitoring purpose, just for the audit purpose, we can basically check in the log table and we can see which are the employee that is being deleted. Now this is you can achieve using triggers. So how we will create a triggers? Let's first see. Now first we will need a functions where we will write our code. That means that insert into this log table. So here we are going to write our code. So we call it function. So we're going to create a function where we would write our logic, like what logic we want to perform. So logic, what we want to perform is that insert into this table, which is called ID, name, and employee time, whatever the information you want to capture from the deleted row. Okay. Now to fire these functions, you need to create a triggers. Okay. So you would need two things. One is called you need to create functions where you have the logic, and then you would need to create a triggers. Okay, so fire this function, we need to create a triggers. Okay, here we will be creating a triggers which is going to monitor this table. So as soon as any employee is being deleted, it is going to fire this function. Once this function is fired, this function is going to capture and insert the record into this table. So as soon as a new employee is being deleted from here, it is going to basically capture in this table. So we can just enter to and any employee name and informations. Okay, so this is what we can achieve using triggers. Now let's see different type of trigger we have. So majorly we have two types of trigger. One is called before, one is called after. We will see when to use which type of trigger. So first trigger that we have, which is called before, which you can see it here, and the second triggers that we have, which is called after. So these are the two type of trigger we have. Before trigger mostly we use to validate informations, right? If in case you want to ensure that if the salary that we are adding, let's say we are adding a new employee record in the salary table, we want to ensure that if the salary is more than a specific amount, let's say if the salary is more than kind of 50,000, then only we want to insert that employee record. Otherwise we would not allow that basically insert statement. That's where we can use this before insert triggers. We have after insert. Now after trigger is going to be basically for logging purpose. Let's say after adding an employee, you want to again maintain that in another table, that employee added and some other times and something like in just for the audit purpose. Okay, so before insert we have, after insert we have. Same we can have a before delete and after delete. Now before delete we want to specify a few things. So sometime before delete we would want to check if the employee department is from IT. So if it is from IT, we would not let them to delete that employee. Okay, so you can raise an exception. You can say that hey, you cannot delete an employee which is from this specific department or any specific things, where you can use this which is called before delete triggers. Now after delete triggers would be something like where you want to maintain records. After the employee is being deleted, immediately you want to add that employee records ID and each and everything into another table just for the logging purpose. Okay, same way we have before update and after update. Let's say you want to update the employee age, you would want to check if the age is more than 18. If it is not more than 18, you would not let them to update the employee age. So let's go to pgadmin4, where I have already created two tables. One is called employee table, which has a specific employee ID, employee name, salary, department, and created time. We have employee logs table. So I guess this has employee ID, employee name, action, and the action time. So you can download the syntax to create this table from the video descriptions. Here I'm going to add this code in the video descriptions. Also I have added some employee records, so I would just show you this employee records that I have added. I'm just going to run this insert statement, so it is going to add those employee records. Okay, right now we have all this employee in the employee table. Right now we have all this employee in the employee table, so you can see we have total 5 employees record. So let's go ahead and first create a triggers, and let's go ahead and first create a after delete triggers. Okay, let's go ahead and say that after delete triggers. Okay, so we are going to create a trigger which is called after. Now before this you need to know one more thing which is called old and new. So let's go ahead and first learn what is this old. Okay, so there's something called old in the triggers and there is something called new. So these are basically variables that basically going to hold the data. So old is always going to hold the current data, okay, current data, the current specific rows data, and new is going to hold basically the new data which you are adding or basically which you are updating. Okay, so that is going to hold the new data. So we're going to use this old and new very much in these functions. So I don't want you to get confused by this old. It's like the existing data and the new is the current data. So let's write it down called old means existing row. Okay, this is a variable where we will have existing row informations, and new means kind of new row. Okay, the information that we're going to add here. Let's first write down the requirements, then we will see which trigger we need to use. Right now we know that we have a triggers called after and we have a triggers called before, but we are using in the delete, so it could be before delete, it could be after delete. So we will see which trigger we need to use. So the requirement is very simple. So requirement is that we need to record the employee after it is being deleted, okay, in another table. So it says record employee in another table which is called this employee logs, employee records, okay, after employee being deleted. Okay, so after every employee that is being deleted from this employee table, we would want to capture that into this employee records table. Okay, so in this table we would want to capture all the employee that is being deleted for the log purpose. This is the requirement. Now here you already know that after the employee is being deleted, then only you would want to record that into this employee table, right? So as soon as one row is deleted, you're going to add that record. As soon as the second employee is deleted, you're going to add this in this table. So for this, again, we need to do two things. One is called the function. We need to write the function, and then we need to create a triggers which is going to basically monitor the employee table, and as soon as the event happens, which is as soon as somebody delete the record, it is going to trigger this function. So in this function we're going to write the logic. So let's go ahead and see the syntax how to create a function. I'm using PostgreSQL. You can use MySQL as well. Syntax is going to be almost same. You just need to change the delimiters. So I'm just saying create or replace function. It's a traditional way of creating functions, and I'm going to name this function something. So I would just give something maybe called employee delete logs. This is the name I am giving. Again, you can give any name that you basically think of. Okay, now here you need to return from this function what you want to return. So here you need to write returns, returns and trigger. So what I want to return from this function is the trigger. Okay, now you would write s, and the delimiters for PostgreSQL it's going to be $2 and you need to end this with another $2. Okay, now here you would write begin and you would write basically end. Okay, so you would write begin and ends. All your logic and all your code, it is going to be here. Okay, so here we will write all our logic and code that we want to perform. So here if you see the task that we want to perform, as soon as the employee is being deleted, we would want to insert that employee records into this log table, right? So that is going to done by this function. So in this function we would need to write a insert statement that is going to add a new records in this table after that is being deleted from this employee table, right? That is what we want to perform. For that we would just write an insert statement that is going to be in this table that's called employee records table, right? So employee record table need employee ID. So employee record table need employee ID, employee name, action, which is a message which you can add whatever the message you want to add, and the action time. Okay, so these are the things that we need in the employee record table. You can do it manually. Let's say you are kind of writing down in a pen and paper that okay, this employee ID, this is the employee name, this is the salary that is being deleted, and then you are just writing down in another audit book. Okay, here we would do that automatically. So I would write an insert statement here. So I'm going to say insert, okay, into, and where I want to insert the records, that's going to be employee records. And what are the things I want to insert? So first I want to insert the employee ID. Okay, then I would want to insert the employee name. Again, it's not mandatory. Whatever the columns you want to insert, you can define it here. So insert a time I would want here, and then is like, which is called action. I guess it's called action message, or it's called action. Let's go ahead and see the column. It's called action. Okay, so then we would want to insert the action, like what action we have performed. Is it like the employee is being deleted? It's kind of updated. So you can just write a message here. Okay, so we're just writing a simple insert statement. Now here you may get a little confused. Okay, so I would write call values. What values you are inserting here, right? So usually you would give your values that you are inserting, here, right? So whenever you do an insert statement, you need to tell what are the things: employee ID, employee name, action time, and the action message, right? So here we would not write this insert statement that time when the event will happen, right? So it is going to happen automatically. So you would need somehow this function should know which employee is being deleted. Okay, now as I said earlier, using old you can access the existing row, using new you can access the new record that is being added, or that is being added, or that is being kind of updated, or something like it. So old is going to be the current row that we have just deleted. That row we will use old, because old is going to hold that row informations. So we call it variable in trigger. So this old variable will have that informations. Now how we access it? So here first I want to insert the employee ID. I'm going to say old dot this employee ID. Okay, so old dot employee ID means this just the row that we have deleted. From that row it is going to just get me that employee ID. So let's say right now I have just deleted a record, so where employee ID was kind of 3. So this 3 is going to be my old. Okay, this 3 I am going to call it using old. Okay, now if I just need the name, so I would again call it old. Okay, I would call it old dot name. Okay, whatever the column name is, and for ID I would call old dot ID. For name I would say old dot name. Okay, now whenever we would insert it, that time we would call a new, right? That time it doesn't exist, so we will call it new. So this is how SQL is going to automatically understand that, okay, the employee just we have deleted, so that is kind of old dot employee ID. So here I'm saying old. Okay, now let's see what else we need. We need the employee name, so I'm just going to call old dot employee name, so to access the employee name that we have just deleted from the row, because that is going to hold in this old variable. Okay, all that specific row information like name, ID, salary, whatever the informations are there. Okay, now action time, I can just use a current time stem, so that's going to print the current time. Okay, time stem, time along with the date. So from the system it's going to put the date and time at the time, what time it is being deleted. Okay, so this is fine. Next I would just need an action message. So here I can just type a text like what text I want to insert. So here I would just call that employee deleted. Okay, so any message that I would want to print it here, that's going to in this column, that will go to in this column. Okay, of that specific row. Now any logic that you write, you need to close it using this semicolon here. Okay, this statement end here. I can simply print a message here that kind of employee recorded, but not mandatory. Let's keep it simple. Now here you need to write one more thing which is called a return. You need to write one more thing which is called return old. Okay, what does it mean? It means that whatever the action you have performed here, okay, you are just returning the old. So that means it is going to basically capture that information in this employee records. Why we are saying old? Because we have got that information from this old variable which hold that employee records. That is the reason we are saying return old. So that means the old variable that hold that specific row, all the informations we are at the end returning. So it is going to basically save that informations in this employee record. Okay, that is it, and our function is ready. So I can just go ahead and now run this function. I would just need to tell here the language. So I would just need to call language, and for PostgreSQL I need to write PL, which is called procedural language, and I would need to write PGSQL. I would just close the syntax and let's go ahead and run it. So you can see right now our function is created. Okay, you can even go ahead and check the function as well if you want to check. So you can go to your database and you would just need to go to this trigger functions, refresh it. You see that employee delete function that is created. Now here you may get confused. Okay, because we have two things. One is called the functions where we have written the logic, and there would be one trigger which is going to monitor the employee table, and that is going to fire the trigger as soon as the employee is deleted, and that's going to fire this function that, hey, there is the employee is being deleted, can you please record that in this employee record table, or whatever the logic you have. So for that we need to create a trigger. Okay, we need to create a trigger. So here we are going to create a trigger to fire this function as soon as that event take place. What event is the employee delete. Okay, now how we are going to do that? Let's write it here. So we're going to say create trigger. Okay, now here also you need to give a simple name. So I would just give a simple name called delete employee trigger. Okay, delete employee record or logs triggers. So I would say logs, delete employee logs triggers. Now here you need to understand one thing. Is it a before triggers? It is a after trigger. See, after the employee is being deleted, then only we want to capture that, right? If it is kind of before deleting, we're checking something, then we would use a before. If it is after, we would use after. So here you're going to write something called before. Now here it is very important to understand which type of trigger you have created. See, the trigger we have created is called after because we are capturing the old values. Once the employee is deleted, then we are capturing it here row by row, right? So here I'm saying after, and I would need to write after what? After delete, because after delete, what we are kind of capturing the employee record. So here you need to say after delete, let's say DLE, after delete on. So you need to say after delete on, and which table. So the table name we need to tell here called employees table, right? So we are saying after delete on this employees table. This is the table which is called after delete on employees table. Okay, so here you are saying create trigger, and you're giving a trigger name, and you're saying after delete on this employees table, and what do you want to do? Okay, now here you need to write one thing which is called for each row. Okay, so you have two options. One is called for each statement and one is called for each row. I'm going to explain both. So we also have called for each statement. Okay, now here you can also use for each statement. So it is going to execute for the entire statement in one go, mostly used for the audit purpose, and for each row it's going to basically check for row by row. So in the timestamp for each row, the time it is going to capture, and when you use for each statement, it is going to basically put only one time. After all the event is done, then it is going to capture it. So it is better to use this one which is called for each row. So row by row we are going to capture, and row by row we are going to capture time when that employee was deleted. Okay, now you can use this one as well also. So let's go ahead and see that we are saying that okay, create triggers name if we have given, we're saying after delete on employees for each row. Now what you want to do for each row? Okay, so here we need to write our logic. So here I'm going to say execute function. What function? So I would give this function name that I have created earlier, which is called employee delete log. Okay, so now what I'm saying here is that hey, as soon as the employee is being deleted from the employee table, for each row, for each employee that is being deleted, execute these functions. So what is this function does? This function basically record that employee into a new table which is called employee logs a table. This one employee records a table. Okay, so this is it. You don't have to tell anything called language or anything here. So I would just run this. You see the trigger is created. Now we have the trigger which is created, which is going to fire this function, which is this function, and this function is going to capture that basically employee who has been deleted. Okay, so let's go ahead and test it. Okay, so here first we would go ahead and see the employee table. So let's say we have all this employee, and let's go ahead and delete one employee maybe from this which is called 14. Okay, the employee ID is 14. I would try to delete this employee, and I would also show you this employee record. At the moment we do not have any records, and we will be deleting one employee which is called employee 14. The name is Pooja. Okay, so let's go ahead and write a delete statement. So I would just go ahead and say delete from which is called employees, which is called employees table, and I need to use a where condition because I don't want to delete all the employee at once. So I'm just saying employee ID. So I would filter the data by employee ID which is called 14. Okay, so I'm saying delete from employees table, simple delete statement, and I would write it. You see one employee is being deleted. Okay, you don't see any messages at the moment, but we can go ahead and now verify it in employee records. You can see in employee records it has captured that information. It is also printed that message, hey 14 employee ID 14 Pooja, and the action that perform which is called employee deleted, and the time when this employee was deleted. You can see it has captured the real time from my machine. Okay, let's now go ahead and create one more trigger which is going to be before delete. Okay, now this before delete is very useful. So let's say we would want to kind of check if the employee that we are trying to delete, is it from IT. If the employee is from IT, we would not let them to delete this employee. Now this is just an example. It could be any example based on what table you're working on. So the logic is going to be same. If anyone try to delete IT people, we would just show them a message called deleting people which are from IT department are not allowed. Please contact your IT department, something like it. Okay, and we would also eliminate that delete a kind of task. Okay, so for that we would again go ahead and start the logic here. So first we would be creating our function which is going to prevent them to delete the employee, and which is also going to show them a kind of the error message. Okay, so we would just go ahead and write a function here to prevent delete employee if they are from IT. Okay, so this is the function that we are going to kind of write it here. Then we need to create again one more trigger which is going to trigger this function. Okay, so let's go ahead and first write create or replace, and I would create or replace function, and let's give a nice name call here prevent. Again I would just go ahead and say that employee delete, okay, check, employee delete check. So I would just give a short name which is called employee delete check. So basically before deleting we're checking that. Okay, now I would just go ahead and say returns. Okay, so in this return you need to make sure that you're using s, otherwise it's not going to work. So I would say returns s, and I would just give the delimiters which is going to be, okay, return, and I would need to call trigger what I'm returning. So I'm returning a trigger s, and the delimiters I would be giving as kind of this which is called $sign, and also I would need to give this $sign. So all these things I'm going to put it here. Okay, so this is fine. Now I would just go ahead and say begin, and here I would say end. Okay, now what this function we want to do, right? We want this function to check whenever the employee is being deleted, is this employee from IT department? If yes, then we would want these functions to cancel that task and show an error message that hey, you cannot delete this employee because it is from IT department. Okay, so this is what we want this function to do. So for that we would put all our code here, right? All our code and logic here. So the code this time we would first want to check if the employees from IT department. Okay, so how you would check if the employees from IT department? So if in case you want to check the department that the employee is being deleted, so for that you would kind of write a simple message here called if. Okay, and then you would put your logic here. So the logic what we want is going to be if this old dot employee department. Okay, so we are checking the employee department. That's going to be, let me show you the employee table. Okay, so employee tables we have something called department. Okay, so department what we are going to use, again let me just run this query which is called employees to see the table structure. Okay, so employee, let's go ahead and run it. So right now you see we have all this information. Let's say I am trying to delete this employee which is called Rajesh. Rajesh is from department which is called IT. Okay, so if I want to access this, right now I'm deleting this. If I want to access this employee department, this rows department, so I'm going to access using old because this is my current existing employee which I am trying to delete it, right? So I would use old dot department. That is how I would be getting that employee department name. So what I would want to check here is that something like it. Okay, I would say old dot department, make sure the spelling is correct, and equals old dot department equals, and I would check with IT. Okay, and if I'm saying if old dot department equals IT, that means if the employee that you are trying to delete, that specific rows employees department is IT, then what do you want? So then we would kind of want to cancel the task. So I'm going to say then. Okay, then, and here I would write my then logic. So what I would want is called raise exception. So raise exception means that you cannot delete the employee. So this raise exception is going to cancel the employee being deleted. Okay, so here I would just print a message called you cannot deleting employee. Let's go ahead and say that deleting employee from IT department is not allowed. Okay, let's say that contact IT team. Okay, contact IT team. So I can just print a nice message called deleting employee from IT department is not allowed, contact IT team. Okay, so this is done. This is my one statement. Here I have simply checked that employee department. If it is IT, then I am raising it. Okay, now here once this is done, I would just need to say end if. Okay, so that means the if logic I'm closing it here. That's it. I would simply go ahead and write it again. Language here, language going to be PL, which is called procedure language, PGSQL. Okay, this is fine. Now let's go ahead and kind of save this function. Okay, this function is created. Now we would just need to create one more triggers which is going to trigger these functions. So for that I would just go ahead and just call create trigger. Okay, so here I would just go ahead and say that create triggers and give a name called employee delete check trigger. Make sure the names are different here and here. Okay, so employee delete check trigger. Okay, so this is called employee delete check triggers, and I would just need to write call what. So this is going to be before. Now here you need to understand, before the employee is being deleted, we are checking it, right? Earlier we wanted to capture it, so it was after trigger. Now here it is before trigger, because here you need to understand one thing: before the employee is being deleted, we are checking if this employee is from IT. So this is the reason I am going to use a before trigger. So this entire trigger is going to be before trigger. The earlier one was basically after the employee is being deleted, we would wanted to capture that employee record. So here we are going to say before. So before, and we're going to say before what? Before delete on this employee table. So employee table. So we are saying before delete on employees table for each row, which is mandatory. Either you can say for each statement, or you can say for each row. So we are saying for each row, what do you want to execute? So we're going to say execute function. Which function? That's going to be this functions, employee delete a check. Okay, so now we have something called employee delete check. Let's go ahead and run it. So I'm just going to execute for each row. Let's check. Okay, I did not I missed here parenthesis. We need to give this function along with the parenthesis. Okay, because this function takes argument. If you have some argument, you can define it here. So this is done. Now here we have one more trigger, which is going to keep an eye on this table. As soon as you try to delete something, it is going to basically fire that function, which is this function. So this function, it basically check. This function check if this employee is from IT department, it is going to cancel that kind of task and show error message. So this function now monitor the department before the employee is being deleted. We have one more triggers that basically kind of record once the employee is being deleted. So first, this trigger is going to kind of fire this function, and if in case it is not from IT, then basically this trigger that we have created earlier, that's going to fire these functions. Okay, that's going to capture the employee into this. Okay, so this is what this function is going to do. Let's now go ahead and kind of see if in case it is working or not. Okay, so we will go ahead, and here we will kind of check this time. This time we will check again the employees, and right now we have IT, which is called 13. That's called Rajesh. So Rajesh is from IT. Let's try to delete. Okay, so we would say delete from employees, which is called employee ID 13. Let's run it. You see, you are getting error message here called error. It says deleting employee from IT department is not allowed. Contact IT team. Okay, so you are getting that customized error message. Now if you see this which is this table, employee records table, you can see that it has not deleted it. It has not added that record. We still have in the employee table that record, which is called Rajesh. Now let's go ahead and try to delete one more employee. Maybe that is from HR, which is called Amit. So let's say we want to delete which is from HR, that is called Amit. Okay, so for that the employee is 11. So we should basically able to delete employee which is called employee 11. So let's go ahead and say employee 11, and let's run it. But we are going to get some error because we need to return something. When we created the triggers, we did not return anything here. For other cases, see here we are saying that okay, although department equals IT, if it is IT, raise exception, that means cancel that task. And we're saying deleting employee from IT is not allowed. Okay, and we are ending this if logic here. After ending this if logic, we would need to write a return cases. So if in case if it is not from IT, what we want to kind of perform? So we want to perform the normal task, whatever the task is. So we would say here return dot old. Okay, return old. So that means we are saying if it is from IT, then only cancel the task. If it is not from IT, then return old. So that means then the function is going to continue. Okay, so we are saying for other case return old. Okay, so for other case we are just returning that specific employee so that the function is going to continue. Now we will need to create the function again to verify it. So I'm just going to create the functions again, and let's go ahead and now try to delete this employee which is from 11. Okay, now if you see, it did work. Right now I was able to delete this employee which is called Amit Sharma. That was from HR, and the employee ID is 11. Okay, so now we have seen two types of triggers. One is called before, one is called after. So we have checked before delete, we have checked after delete. Let's go ahead and see one more type of trigger that is going to be basically before insert and after insert, because before update and after update is going to be same as like before delete and after delete. I would want to show you basically this one which is called before insert, so that the video doesn't get very long. Okay, let's go ahead and now see that we would want to insert some records in this table which is called employees table. Okay, so in employees table we have all these informations, okay, which is you can see it here. Now before inserting any employees, we would want to ensure that the salary is kind of more than 48,000. Okay, more than 48,000. This is what we want to check. This is a requirement, so you need to first write the requirement, understand the requirement, then only you can create the triggers. Now if you see this trigger, which I say that here, before, okay, before inserting new employee record, we want to check if the salary is more than, maybe more than, let's say 10k. Okay, more than 10k. If it is more than 10k, then we will allow. If it is less than 10k, we are not going to allow. Okay, so for that we would again go ahead and say create or replace. Okay, same syntax, create or replace function, and I would just go ahead and say that before insert check. Okay, before insert check. So this is my function name, and I would just go ahead and say returns trigger. This function return trigger, and as I would just use the delimiters, which is this, and one more delimiters here to close it. Okay, here I would say begin, and I would need to say end. Okay, so begin and ends, and here I would need to basically write the language. So language is going to be same, so language, which is going to be PL, PG, SQL. Okay, everything remains same. Here now we would want to check before inserting, we want to check that specific employee that we are trying to add, that employee's salary. Okay, salary amount. So again we would need to use if logic. So we would say if, and here we would put our logic, what we want to check. So here we would say new dot salary. See why we are saying new, because this employee we're trying to add, right, it doesn't exist already in the table. So we're going to say new dot salary, and we are saying if new dot salary is kind of less than 10,000. If it is less than 10,000, then what do you want to perform? So here we would write our then logic. So then we would just raise the exception here. So raise exception. Okay, to basically cancel that insert record. Okay, so we're going to say that adding employee salary, the salary must be, we are going to say adding employee with salary less than 10k is not allowed. Okay, so we're just showing this error message and we're canceling the task. Okay, now we would just need to say end if to close this end logic that we have started. So this is fine, we can just go ahead and run this query. And why I'm saying new dot salary, because this, whenever you are trying to add a new record, okay, that is going to basically, that row information is going to hold by this new variable, existing information is going to hold by the old variable, which I have explained earlier. Let's go ahead and create it. So and if there is this issues. Okay, I did not mention here this parenthesis. Okay, you need to mention this parenthesis here. I did not mention this kind of semicolon, so you need to mention this semicolon. Okay, now it is created. Now we would just need to create a trigger which is going to basically fire this function as soon as we try to add new records, and which is going to basically keep an eye on adding new record. Okay, event. So I'm going to say create trigger and name it call before insert check trigger. Okay, I usually name it the same so that I don't miss it. I'm saying before insert check trigger, and this is before insert check. This is not the trigger, this is the function, and this is the triggers. Okay, which is going to fire these functions. And we are going to now use before. Why? Because before inserting the employee, we are checking the salary. Okay, so you're going to say before, and here I would need to write that before, which is called insert on, because before insert on specific table we are checking this, right? So before insert on employees for each row, so this is a mandatory, and we would say execute function. Which function? That's going to be this function, including this parenthesis. Okay, let's go ahead and create it. So it is now created. Let's go ahead and test it. So let's say we have employee records, and let's try to add some records here. Okay, I would just go ahead and say insert into, which is called employees, and let's kind of put all the columns name that we want to insert. So let's first see what are the columns we have in the employees table. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a record called 10116. Okay, 116, and let's give an employee name called maybe Sam. Okay, let's give a, which is called salary called maybe 8,000. Okay, so we are putting it is less than 10,000, and department is going to be kind of IT, and created time. So created time we would want current time stamp. Okay, current time stamp. Okay, so this is fine. Let's go ahead and see what happens. insert into, I did not mention values. We need to say insert what we are trying to add, right? So syntax error. Let's go ahead and run it. You see, adding employee with salary less than 10k is not allowed because the employee that we are trying to add, it has the salary which is less than 10. Now let's try to add it with maybe 18k. Okay, let's say we want to add it with 18k, and let's see what happens. You see, it's giving some error called control reach end of triggers procedures without return. So basically, for the people who have a salary which is more than 10k, we have not defined what do you want to do for them. So for earlier example, we have defined a return all, right? For the employee who is not from IT department, for them we wanted the functions to delete that basically row. So here we are going to define what we want in return. Instead of nothing, we would need to kind of, after this AND logic, we would just go ahead and say return new. Okay, why I'm saying new? Because we are letting them to insert the new record. Okay, so this is what we need to do. So I am going to just create it again, and let's go ahead and test these functions right now. So if I test it, you see one record is inserted, and if you see here, which is called in the employees table, we have one more employee which is now called Sam, that is from IT department, that has 18,000 salary. Okay, all right, so this is fine. Now let's go ahead and see one more which is called after insert. So after insert, we would want to kind of record it into this log tables. Okay, so one more requirements we have now. After insert, we would want to record it here. So for that, we will go ahead and write after insert statement functions. Okay, so after insert. So for after insert, what you can do is that we have one options which is like we can log that employee into some tables to kind of further log purpose. Okay, so we would first create a function. So we would go ahead and say create or replace function. Okay, so we're saying create or replace functions, and let's call add logs. Okay, employee add logs, what I'm giving, and I'm going to call returns, and what I would say call a return trigger. Okay, so I'm return triggers as and this delimiters is going to be same, and I would just go ahead and put it here. Okay, and I would say it's called language PGSQL. Okay, and here I would say begin, here I would say end. So here I would just need to write very simple statement, same as like the after delete one that we have done earlier. So here I would just go ahead and say insert into, for the log purpose, into this kind of table which is called employee record, right? So I guess the table name is called employee records, where I want to insert. So I would just go ahead and say insert into employee records, and the column we want to kind of capture is the employee ID, we want the employee name, and we want kind of the action, maybe this action time and this action. Okay, what do you want? Okay, so I would need to say values. And how do I get the values? So I can use this which is called new, because we are adding a new employee, so we would say new here. So new dot what, which is called employee ID, and I would go ahead and say new dot employee name. Okay, and I would say action message I can type, which is called, the time is going to be current timestamp. Okay, an action message called new employee edit. Okay, so this is the action message. So here if you want to show a nice message, so you can just say raise notice. Now you need to understand the difference between raise exception and the raise notice. Raise notice is not going to eliminate the task, it's just going to show a nice message. Raise exception is going to basically eliminate the task. So I'm going to say new employee edit to audit table. Okay, so kind of nice message. So this is fine. We would just need to say call return here, return new. Okay, this is fine. Let's go ahead and run it. Raise notice, I did not kind of close this syntax, and I would also need to close this syntax as well here. Okay, so this is fine. Now let's go ahead and kind of create the triggers which is going to basically fire this trigger, right? So for that I would say create trigger, which is to fire these functions, and the trigger name is going to be same employee add log, and I would say trigger. Okay, so this is going to be what, after, okay, insert on, which is called employees table. So after inserting on employees table, we are executing for each row. Okay, for each row, which is mandatory, and we are saying execute function. Which function? That's going to be this function, which is called add employee log function. Okay, and we are going to run it, Let's go ahead and try to add one more employee. This time there's going to be 5, and employee name is called John. Okay, and salary is 19,000. Okay, so let's try to add this employee, and you see the employee is added. I am also getting a notice here called employee added to audit table. So let's go ahead and check the audit table. Just for the log purpose, you can see John is added in the audit table. Just for the log purpose, it says new employee added, right? And now if you see the employees table as well, so here you would see that it is also showing that, okay, John and the department is IT, and what you have just added. Okay, so now you have learned how to create different triggers. So we have seen how to create before delete triggers, we have seen how to create after delete triggers, which is to maintain for the logs, and before delete is basically to check some specific conditions before delete. We have also seen before insert to check specific requirement, and we have also seen after insert, which is basically to maintain the log in another table. We also have before update, we also have after update. It is going to be same. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video till the end. I hope it was helpful. If yes, do subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're new to this channel. Thank you so much for watching the video till the end. I will see you in the next video. Till then, keep learning. Take care. Bye bye.